live.
Greetings, everyone. We will be showing you a brief video for our 17 to 475 series. So please enjoy it.
Nonji, you're mute.
Welcome to this conversation organized by PeaceX on the topic development with green thumbs, the balance between urbanization and the environment.
Greetings, I'm Tobit Abaw, the Delegate Republica from the Philippines. So I hail from the Philippines. So I hope you are all safe and doing well. So PeaceX is an international amity and peace organization that is working towards creating a more sustainable, inclusive, and responsible world. We bring together leaders, innovators, and change makers to achieve this and promote the sustainable development goals set by the UN. Today's topic is development with green thumbs. Former United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon surmised the SDGs into 5 Ps, to wit, people, prosperity, planet, peace, and partnership for the goals. Now, we will explore both the present and future scenario of urbanization as it has implications in the part of people, prosperity, peace, and most especially the planet. Harmonizing people and the planet and ensuring prosperity for all is a pathway towards sustainable peace and a noble agenda to be pursued. And this is something that we are going to explore in this webinar. It is my pleasure to introduce to all of you our speaker today, Ms. Mariama Badji. So Ms. Badji is a civil engineer, a volunteer, and a youth leader from Senegal. She is the co-founder and CEO of DNA Sarl, a construction company that offers living environments using available natural and local materials. As an engineer, she is passionate about environmental concerns and believes that protection will only be possible through the commitment of everyone. As for her works, it involves the construction of safe, comfortable, and eco-friendly housing units. So it's great to have here. It's great to have you here with us today, Mariam.
And my name is Nonjabulo Komete from South Africa, and I am the head of content. And I'm also looking forward to having this conversation with you guys and engaging with you further. And welcome, Mariama. But for a smooth discussion, I'd like to go over a few rules that we should all keep in mind throughout the duration of this live session. There is an attendance sheet for the webinar in the comments section. It's pinned to the top. Please fill this out to confirm your presence. The form will be open until 45 minutes after the session. Please note that the e-certificates will be provided within 1 week to only those who fill this form. The form will be available only on this chat. The e-certificates will not be provided if you fail to fill in the attendance sheet. So please kindly check the promotional or spam folder if the email has not been found in your primary folder. Please feel free to ask questions during the webinar through the live chat section. we'll try our best to take them up. But most importantly, we hope that you have an informative and engaging time with us today.
So coming to the discussion. Hello, Mariam. Hello, Mariama. So our first question is, what is your vision of green urbanization and what made it green, and how can we help achieve it?
Thank you so much, and thank you to all PeaceX organization for inviting me. It's a real pleasure. And talking about green urbanization, you know, green refers to the environment. And we cannot talk about urbanization without talking about environment, because I think that one does not work without the other one. And urbanization is a whole process of development of cities around a growing population. And very often, it's the environment that suffers. So green urbanization, I think that it's the pledge to a better future for all, because sustainable and green urbanization is part of a process. It's a project, a progress approach that challenges everyone. I mean, professional practices, political leaders, and local actors, including residents. And the learning of eco-responsible behaviors by the city's actor, and in particular the inhabitant, remains a key issue for real control of resources and use these in the city. So I think that to achieve this green urbanization, we must review our development policies to have functional cities. And for that, we need to implement policies that allow us to build with adapted and sustainable housing with using mainly local resources. And I think that this may include locally available materials and local workers, because it's a good way to involve the different actors in the city and to keep the economy alive at the same time. So it's possible also to use building materials with low environmental footprint. And after this housing must be complemented by resilient infrastructure that take into account the different needs of population. I mean, health, work, recreation, because in a city, we need to ensure the well-being and comfort of all people.
Hey, that's great. So next is, I need your honest opinion for discussion. So by 2050, this is the scenario. It is estimated that 2/3 of the global population will live in cities. So also in 2050, the global population is projected to reach 9.7 billion. So that means a lot more people. And then more people means more need for space, for both shelter and of course for food production. However, the present scenario is this. There is an ongoing global rise of sea level attributed to climate change, and it inundates land and risks the submergence of low-lying cities such as Venice, Rotterdam, Jakarta, Lagos, Dhaka, among others. So, are we right on track in hitting the targets of the SDGs by 2030 to avert this cataclysmic scenario?
Can you, I did not hear well. Can you please repeat the last question?
Are we right on track on hitting the targets of the SDGs so that we can avert this cataclysmic scenario? So that was the question. So because this is the present is confronted with an irony, right? There will be more people in the cities. There will be more population. However, the scenario is that the global rise of sea level is inundating the cities. So we need to act now, especially in solving climate change, so that we can avert or we can prevent this scenario from going. So are we right on track in hitting the targets of the SDGs?
Okay, talking about climate change, I think that it's a global. It has a global impact on people, on wherever they are in the world right now. And I think that we are all affected by the consequences. And I believe that a deep comparison between human action and the climate since the Industrial Revolution could lead to the acceptance of climate change. So people need to know that climate change is real and it's due to human action because we have melting glaciers that are causing sea levels to rise, leading flooding and erosion of coastal and low-lying areas. So we also have heavy rainfall and other extreme weather events which are becoming more and more frequent. And according to the World Health Organization, climate change is responsible for at least 150,000 of these per year. And in Africa, for example, rising temperatures are promoting mosquitoes and population will be more exposed to this disease such as malaria, dengue fever, and other insect-borne infection. And you know, we are in the city, so we use a lot of cars. So air pollution also causes many respiratory diseases. And some plant and animal species will be seriously threatened with extinction if the planet average temperature continues to rise unchecked. And all these consequences want to stop if we continue with the same habits and the same activities. And for this reason, it's necessary that everyone of us in the world to participate in the struggle for the well-being of the planet and humanity.
So I would like to embark on your argument that because everyone must be involved, because a climate action will be meaningless if only one actor will be involved. So do you think that currently everyone is on board to solve this climate change issue?
Yeah, I think that everyone must be concerned because climate change or environmental protection concern everyone from the smallest child to the CEO of the big company. And I mean, everyone at his own level must do something in favor of the environment, no matter how small it is. And we have to raise awareness because I think it's the first solution. And to do something, people can participate in environmental decision making because I think that it's a good way of exercising environmental citizenship and to get involved in the environmental decision making process. Also, we can hold a lot of business because the industries and businesses have a tremendous impact on the environment. So if we help them to act responsibly as you make your consumer choices on goods or services. So we people, we need to think green before we buy something. And I think that it's a good way to start protecting the environment. And also people can adopt a green lifestyle because in our simple everyday life, we can adopt some simple green habits that could easily save us some money and at the same time save the environment. Because it doesn't take too much effort for one to shift to greener habits. We can all adopt some of these green habits and help save the planet. For example, we know that plastic pollution is dangerous for the oceans, and so we can use a reusable bottle for water. We can buy local. We can also save the energy by just turning the light off when it's not when we are not using it, and we can also switch to choice light bulbs which are energy efficient. So I think that when I say everyone, I'm also speaking about the citizen, because there is a quote of Abraham Lincoln that really motivated me and inspired me. He say, "Whatever you are, be a good one." So we are citizens. Let's be good citizens and protect the environment.
Yes, that's a great and fascinating point. That is very insightful.
Yeah.
So the single greatest threat that I see towards this trend of urbanization is really climate change. So the problem is that there are still too many skeptics on this issue, that they do not believe that it is a reality, even though we have these lived experiences, we have these adverse experiences, especially among the developing countries. But they are denying it, especially even of some of them are from the academe. So the question is, how can we convince ordinary people, or how can we inculcate to them that climate change is a reality when there is still skepticism even in the scientific community?
Yeah, you know, I think that to convince these ordinary people that climate change is a reality, we can talk about the consequences, because these consequences are real. When we made the comparison between the world in 2000, the world in 2000 and the world right now, 20 years later, we see a real difference. We see a real difference when we look at the weather, when we look at the level of the seas. And I think that people could accept that if they could accept these consequences, and if they accept the consequences, the cause what will be easily to accept, I think.
Great. So for you, is this urbanization trend a positive or a negative thing? So what are the advantages and disadvantages of urbanization? So, and if there are disadvantages, how can we turn these disadvantages into possible opportunities?
Yeah, okay. You know, it has a positive and negative uh, consequences, because urbanization creates a significant demand for housing, for also consumer staples, education, and employment. So when we consider this, urbanization helps promote education, medical care, and various other social security services. And it surely contributes to the development of consumer-oriented, such as trade, restaurant, tourism, and production-oriented sectors, such as finance and logistics. But you know, it also have negative consequences, negative effect. And according to the United Nations report, although cities occupy only 2% of the world's territory, and these 2% of the world territory, they consume 75% of the world's resources and produce a greater percentage of waste. So as consequences, we also note that urbanization increased the greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution. It's real. And let me give you an example. You know, I'm in Senegal. If we take a city like Dakar, the capital, so the population, due to the rural exodus, have spread out anyhow, anywhere in areas that were not subdivided or that were planned for something else. And in the long run, we see in the urbanized cities thermal islands that lead to high temperatures, a decrease in evapotranspiration, and how to say it, a concentration of heat sources, and a decrease in the intensity of winds. So I think that while we have some positive effects, the negative effects are also present, and they have dangerous impact.
Yes, that's insightful, especially when you mention that cities only occupy 2% of the global Earth surface. It is because basically one of the strengths of urbanization is that we have, for example, we have skyscrapers, right? And so with vertically aligned buildings, we can limit the encroachment of humanity, human settlements to nature. So that is a possible strength of urbanization, right?
Yeah, it's a positive strength because because of the high demand for housing, so we have we have a little spaces, so we need to reorganize our cities. So that's why architects and engineers start building vertical with skyscrapers in order to allow and facilitate the housing for all in cities.
So do you think that this urbanization is really our future?
The question, please?
Do you think that urbanization is our future? So
not at all. I think that urbanization right now has, as I said, we can try to turn the negative effects of urbanization in advantages and into strength in order to facilitate the housing for people and to find them jobs and to help them have a better quality of life in cities.
So I am curious about your vision of the future. So imagine it's the year 2050. What do you think urbanization looks like? So what will be its greatest threat?
In 2050,
Yes.
I think that right now, the half of the global population already lives in cities, I think right now. And by 2050, 2/3 of the world population are expected to live in urban areas. So today is noisy, congested, and energy intensive cities could change their face to make way for gentler and more fluid mobility, more greenery, more public or shared spaces, and buildings capable of changing needs. So of course, future cities will be sustainable and resource efficient. So when talking about my vision, I really want new buildings be constructed of a portion of recycled materials from old buildings. So quality of life, wellness, and health should be the hallmark of tomorrow's cities. And to achieve all of this, we have to address challenges in order to meet the needs of growing urban population, including housing, transportation, energy system, and other infrastructure, as well as employment, basic services such as education and healthcare.
That's great. That's insightful. So now we are currently in the state of pandemic, right? As the COVID-19 ravaged the world. So there are some scholars that argued that a post-COVID-19 world will be less urban and less global. So do you agree with this observation, or you do not agree with this observation? So how will the current pandemic affect the urbanization momentum?
Absolutely. Like today, COVID-19 revealed the limits of urbanizations in cities. So, and I think that after coronavirus, people will be more fearful and of crowded train, crowded buses, crowded cafes and restaurants, supermarket and offices. And crowded spaces are the lifeblood of cities. But now, crowds are seen as a major health risk. So people who have the ability to exit the city will increasingly be tempted to do so. People who cannot live well at increased risk hunker down and reduce their movement and contacts. So, okay, I agree with this observation, but also the pandemic risks slowing down the urbanization of cities because people will prefer to move away from cities to already breathe well, to have their open space, to enjoy nature, and which the city no longer allows. But also, let's note that a world that is less global and less urban would also be less prosperous, less stable, and less fulfilling. So we need to prepare this this after pandemic, this after COVID-19 and coronavirus.
That's insightful, because that's an interesting point. Because, for example, these cities actually have high concentration of people. That is why there is a tendency for the pandemic to easily spread, right? For the virus to easily spread. So next question is, cities, especially mega cities, needs enormous energy to power. as you mentioned earlier, that these cities requires enormous amount of energy. So part of the SDGs set by the United Nations is to have a clean and sustainable source of energy. So what should be the ideal source of energy for these cities and megacities?
Okay, you know, the seventh SDG, it talked about affordable and clean energy. And this SDG is at the center of major of the challenges we are facing today, but also opportunities of tomorrow. Because from fighting climate change, of course, but also we developing jobs, housing, connection, security or food production, access to sustainable energy for all is essential. And this SDG is undoubtedly an opportunity to transform lives, to transform economies, and to transform the cities. So we have five types of renewable energy. We have the biomass, which is an interest solution offering a real potential, but it remains limited by the available agriculture and forest land resources. We also have wind power, which is an equally substantial backup solution, but the wind power is limited by its intermittent nature, not to mention other environmental nuisances. So we also have the energy from the sea, the geothermal energy. It also remains solar energy, which is properly the densest and the best distributed renewable energy source. So I think that solar energy in all its form is likely to be one of the major, if not main, energy sources.
So that's great, right? So to reiterate your answer is biomass, right? Biomass, wind energy, tidal energy, then we have solar energy, and so these are renewable sources.
You forget geothermal energy.
Geothermal energy. That's great. That's great. So are we currently right on track in building these technologies? Because I think this requires capital to build.
Yeah, I think that it requires capital, it requires, and people have to also be prepared to this. People have to do more effort for this and to do their best to achieve all this part. And yeah, it will be great.
Interesting. So we hope that in the future there will be more renewable sources of energy aside from these fossil fuels such as coal that releases too much greenhouse gases to our environment. So next is there is now a trend, especially at the international level, that emphasizes greenness. So let me just call it a green movement because there is an emphasis, for example, on green infrastructures, green financing, green cities, green technologies, among other things. So are these green innovations sustainable solutions? If yes, how can we ordinary people help advance this agenda?
Yeah, green is a new trend. We talk about green everywhere and on social media everywhere. And I think that the green movement helps to put the environment at the center of interest. And I think it's a sure way to raise awareness about environmental protection. And yeah, I think that everyone can join the movement. So because we need to communicate about the impact of our actions on the environment. Many people do not know about the real impact of their actions on the environment. So we need to talk about these people. We need to talk about that with these people. We need to talk about also the actions taken to protect the environment, because it could inspire others to make the same and make them more interested. And the simplest way to do this is also to support green initiatives and to help them reach a wider audience.
Great. So I guess that green urbanization requires investment on green infrastructures. Is that I am on the right track?
Yeah.
So what makes an infrastructure green? So for example, let's distinguish these common infrastructures from green infrastructure. So what makes these infrastructures green?
Okay. For green infrastructure, it can be it can be because of the materials, because we can use healthy materials. We can use also, I think, building materials that have a very low environmental footprint. So now we have recycled materials such as plastic bottles. We can also use the earth bricks. We can use wood. So we have a lot of types of material which help us to green infrastructure. And while talking about also green infrastructure, we have bioclimatic infrastructure. So which also reduce the consumption of energy due to the infrastructure, due to the building, because the building sector have a large impact on the environment and greenhouse gas emission.
So I think you mentioned many times the concept of ecological footprint. So ecological footprint. So because it's an interesting concept. So how can we people lessen our ecological footprint? So basically, what is ecological footprint and how can we lessen our ecological footprint?
Okay. When we talk about, when I talk about ecological materials or ecological or building materials with a low ecological footprint, it, you know, when we use something, a product or material, it has an impact while at the production, transportation, because when I'm going to talk about buildings because I'm engineer and that's what I know. And you know, we have to produce the material at the industry. After we have the transportation, and we have all these this process. We have greenhouse gas emission, and these greenhouse gas emission have an impact on the planet, on the atmosphere, and it causes air pollution. And while talking about air pollution, we know that it's the cause of many respiratory diseases right now. And so people who know about that, who know about the environmental footprint of materials, of products, so they have to think green before buying. They have to think about the impact of the product, the impact of the materials before using it. Because right now we have to save our planet. We have to protect it for us and for future generations.
Interesting, Mariam. So yes, you're an engineer. So I would like to ask for our audience also to know what are these materials, construction materials. For example, if we want to build our houses.
Yeah.
So what are these type of materials that has high ecological footprint? So which materials should we avoid?
Okay, you know, I advise you to use the earth material because, you know, it's a natural material and also a healthy material, because with earth we can make bricks, we can use it as round earth also to make buildings. And I think that earth is also the oldest materials. So in the past, people used to build with earth. So, and right now we have to reuse these types of construction and make them more modern and adapt it to our context, to our cities. So while using earth, it have a low environmental footprint. It also helps you to ensure comfort and well-being of people who live in the building or in the house, because you'll have a natural climatization, so you don't need the air conditioning, and so you reduce the energy consumption of your building while at the production and at the use of this.
That's fascinating. That's great that we have these natural materials we can use in building. So next is, we cannot agree more that nature's design is fascinating, and it's amazing also what technology can do. For instance, a Zimbabwean architect emulated the natural ventilation of termites colony into his design of buildings. So this design lessens power consumption because it doesn't anymore need air conditioning. As an engineer yourself, do you think biomimicry, because this is the term they give, it's biomimicry, is the future of green urbanization? So what are these other designs from nature that we can mimic at our favor?
Yeah, I define biomimicry as nature inspiring innovation. You know, in sustainable building, nature can inspire us in many ways through its principle of life, whether it is to improve the insulation or ventilation of buildings, or to improve the quality of materials, or also the solidity of structures. So yes, geomimicry is the future of green and sustainable urbanization. And we have different shapes of biomimicry, with different types. We have shape biomimicry, which consists in taking inspiration from the shapes of the nature to have bioclimatic buildings. So inspired by the shape of cacti, cactus, it's a tower in France, inspired by the shape of cacti and the function of their thorns. So this tower allows both to collect rainwater and to shade the body of the building. So the entire project is based on a light wood material, light wood metal structure that also limits the heat storage while integrating through ventilation. So also we have Ecotown City because it's planned to be the largest wooden construction in Europe, and this city will house offices and housing. So I think that it will be equipped with a plant facade that will protect it in summer and allow daylight to pass through in the winter. So yeah, geomimicry is the future of green and sustainable urbanization.
That's great. That's very insightful. Thank you, Mariama. So,
Mariama, how are you?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm very well, thanks. So I'm glad that we finally have the opportunity to converse as well. So I've been to Senegal, and I might be traveling back to Senegal next month, in fact. But what I found quite interesting in my experience of being there and hosting a talk just about some of the issues that young people face in the country, I realized that there's a pattern. Now, this is speaking about Africa in general, where we have so many issues that often overshadow the conversation about environmental health. So I'm always so fascinated by young people who are in this area of work, young people like yourself, who are doing amazing things in this specific area. But we also know there's a famous guy who comes from Senegal, Akon, who is currently planning on creating an eco-friendly city in Senegal. But my first fascination is about your amazing journey and the work that you've done. So I just want to take a step back. I know we've had all these serious conversations in the first half, and I just want you to take us through your journey. So what inspired you to be, to kind of be drawn to the work that you do? How did it start? Take us through your journey.
Okay, it will be a real pleasure to talk about my journey because it all started in my childhood. And my grandma is my muse. She inspired me a lot because I grew up with my grandma, and we had a lot of trees at home. So as a good Jola, the Jolas are an ethnic group present in the south of Senegal. So she used to tell me stories about the ancestors, about the Casamance, And all the time, she let me know that in our culture, the environment is sacred. And because it's sacred, we must protect it. We must also maintain our environment. And I think at this moment, my passion for environment was born. So at colleges and at high school, I remember we had an environmental association, and we were sometimes planting trees in the college. We were also talking about the effect of the environment. And when I arrived at the university, I was studying civil engineering. And through researches, I discovered ecological construction. And it was, for me, it was really in line with my passion and for the environment. And I started doing more researches about that in order to learn more about the subject. And also I started meeting experts about ecological construction. They also let me know about many things about the impact, about also the effect, because in Senegal and in other countries, I mean, people do not really know about the ecological construction. They do not know about the real impact, and it was a challenge. It was a challenge because me at the university, I meet also my collaborators, which also was passionate about environment. So some months later, we created DNA. We created DNA in order to promote ecological construction by raising awareness and also on the impact of healthy and natural materials. Because we know that many people who do not know about this type of construction, whereas our ancestors used to build like that. So we take inspiration from their construction model and improve them in order to make them modern, sustainable, and adapt to our cities. And yeah, that's it.
That's a wonderful story about the journey of how you came about, the work that you're currently pursuing. I think one of the things that I'm picking out is just, the importance of the relation you had with your grandmother, who imparted the value of taking care of the environment. Because I believe that in order for the environment to take care of us, we need to take care of it. So it's a transactional relationship. But yeah, very inspiring story. And I do hope that, more young people in Africa could just be interested in finding out more information about this area, because I think the biggest underlying issue is not that it's not a problem, it's a huge problem in our respective countries, but people are just not aware of the consequences of it. But your company, DNA Soil, offers living environments using natural and local materials that are comfortable and eco-friendly. Can you tell us more about this? And what are the advantages over using currently used materials? I think you touched on this a bit.
Yeah, in various forms, buildings have impact on the environment, including high energy consumption, waste production, indoor air pollution. And the building sector itself accounts for about 40% of greenhouse gas emission. Also, it accounts for about 36% of total energy consumption and 40% of waste production. So to limit all these environmental impacts, at DNA, we choose building materials with a very low environmental footprint. And right now, we are especially working with earth bricks. And as I said, earth is the oldest and most used building materials. And today, earth is an alternative, and I repeat, a green alternative to concrete, because it offers major architectural and ecological perspective. It also has many advantages, among which we have accessibility, because we can find earth everywhere on the planet, and this significantly reduces the transportation cost. We also have the healthy air quality, because with Earth we have no clearances or chemical to avoid certain allergies and respiratory illnesses. We also have energy sobriety, because right now energy consumption is one of the biggest problems we are facing right now. And with energy sobriety, we reduce the energy needs at all levels of the buildings, because when we have to make of bricks, we do not need the industries or materials that consume a lot of energy. So we are working with manual press, and does not use a lot of energy. So it reduces the energy need at all levels of the building. We also do not need natural air conditioning while building with earth, because the great inertia of the bricks reduces the temperature variation. So the air conditioning savings are real, and the comfort of the occupant is increased. And we have also the availability of the raw materials, and the use of local labor give to the materials, to the earth materials, its societal impact.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer. I think another thing that I picked out on when you're speaking about you know how effective your bricks are, where the weather is concerned, because I know that Senegal can be quite hot.
Yeah.
And one thing you'd previously spoken about is just the relationship between the demand for housing and the supply. You know, I think often the reason why we have so much waste is because of the growing population and our city's inability to kind of accommodate these growing cities, and the demand, you know, the demand for housing. But what you are supplying, I think, is so innovative in the country that you come from. And I love how you have really considered the geographical setting of the environments that you are based in order to provide the best service for people who live in that area. But let's look at our current worldview. You know, it's often pragmatic. When we see a problem, we explore solutions that can immediately solve it, yet we often overlook its long-term repercussions. Do you think the way we approach current global problems is the right mindset? Are these sustainable? Or perhaps what humanity needs is a fundamental change on some of its currently held worldviews, such as on the area of development, quality of living, consumption, and other similar things, so that real change will then follow. So do you think that we are approaching our global problems in the right way? Are we being sustainable enough, or can we improve in that area?
I think that we can improve it, because as you say, a change in mindset, mindset, habits, and behaviors, I think they are essential to achieve the sustainable development. Because with the right mindset, we'll explore solutions, not just immediately, but also we'll think about the long-term repercussion. So when we have the right mindset, so while we are going to buy products or materials, we are going to regulate our consumption. And it's important, I think it's important, and changing also our mindset will help all the people to be concerned by the climate change and start it with the climate, the environmental protection, because it's important, it's fundamental, and everyone must join the movement.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I think one thing that I realized just from traveling to Senegal, I was fascinated by the infrastructure. It's so distinct from any country that I've ever been in. And this is my question to you, apart from the other wonderful questions that I've been reading. But I'm fascinated by, you know, the traditional infrastructure. I spent a month, I don't know, maybe perhaps it's different in other areas in Senegal, but I spent a month in St. Louis, and it was very distinct for me. And I just want to know, with the business that you are, construction business that you are running, have you introduced maybe more urban ways of building houses in terms of just the architectural design, or have you stuck to the traditional way of, you know, construction in your country, or is yours a bit different in terms of just the architectural design?
Yeah, we have a difference about the shapes and the architectural design, because with earth materials we want to have bioclimatic buildings, and when we talk about bioclimatic, it needs a specific architectural design, because with bioclimatic, the comfort and the well-being of the occupant is also the first thing before starting building, or before starting the plan or the architectural design. And yeah, it's not the same. It have differences because we try to adapt shapes, the architecture to the climate, because in Senegal sometimes it's too hot, so the weather can vary sometimes, and we take into account all these factors in the architecture of our earth buildings.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for your wonderful insights. So I'm just gonna read a few questions that our participants have sent us on Facebook. One of them would be, but before I actually go into that, I just want to remind our participants who may have joined late, to fill in the attendance, to fill in the attendance form on the link provided. A huge reminder that it will be removed 45 minutes after the session. So please fill in the form. Yeah. Okay. So let me move on to the question. The first question would be, how are agricultural activities affected by climate change?
How agricultural
activities, how are they affected by climate change?
Okay, I guess that everyone is affected by climate change. And while talking about agriculture here in Senegal, since 5 or 10 years, I think the weather is changing. And the agriculture, we are in developing countries, and the agriculture needs a lot of rains, because right now we notice that the rainy season is just the rainy season, which were about 3 or 4 months, 5 years. Right now we just have 2 months of rain, of a rainy season, and it does not it's not enough for agriculture to develop their products, and yeah, they're affected by the climate change.
Okay. And in your opinion, is the best model of what in your opinion is the best model of city development from around the world that other nations should copy? Is there any country that has a really great model of city developments that you're inspired by?
A country or a city, right now, I really like the development of Singapore, because they are using recycled material, they are using earth materials, and also they are while making decision, they think about the well-being, the comfort, and the quality of life of people. And I think that it's the most important while making a cities, because these people are because the people and the environment affect each other. So we need to reconsider the impact of the environment on the people and the impact of people in the environment. And yeah, Singapore is a great example.
I like how you're speaking about the importance of valuing people's lives. I think during the pandemic, it has been something that has been emphasized more than anything, about learning how to balance between wanting your economy to grow and maintaining some form of economic stability, but also protecting the lives of people. So I believe that even translates into the construction of cities to make sure that people's lives are preserved.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, so the localization of construction is said to be less safer in terms of disaster-proof infrastructure, but it is sustainable. How do you suggest we balance or choose between the two? Should I read that again? I don't know if you got it.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So localization of construction is said to be less safer in terms of disaster-proof infrastructure, but it is more sustainable. How do you suggest we balance or choose between the two? So which one is better, the localization of construction or disaster-proof infrastructure? I don't know if I'm getting that question correct. Do you think there should be a balance between localization of construction and disaster-proof infrastructure, or do you think we should choose between the two?
I think that we can make a balance between the localization and also the other time. And you know, it's important. I think that it's important because while the demand of housing is increasing, also we need to adapt. We need to adapt our buildings. We need to adapt our the housing process to the demand. So, and we know that this demand is increase as we say, and also people need to try to make a balance between the localization and the construction, I think.
Yeah, and in any event, we're speaking about sustainable development goals. So the very essence of this conversation is being able to achieve sustainability. So I echo those sentiments about the importance of finding a balance between localization and disaster-proof infrastructure, because we are thinking about the long term.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am going to move on. Oh, okay. Oh, how unfortunate. I was having such a great conversation with you. We've reached the end of the question and answer segments, unfortunately. But in fact, before I move on to Toby, Tobit to take the last section of this conversation, I do just want to ask you, for people who are, you know, watching you today and who are so inspired by your journey, what words of advice would you have for someone who is interested in perhaps going into construction, a young woman from Africa who's interested in this particular area, or anyone in general? What advice would you have for them?
You know, I'm just going to ask them to be passionate about what they're going to do, because when we are passionate, and I think that passion is energy, and it's important. It's important to do your best, whatever you are doing, wherever you are, whatever you are, and it will be a great journey to start entrepreneurship. And also, I think that the youth must be more interested by the environmental problem, because we youth are the generation we are going to lead the world, and also we have to fight for future generations, and we have also to act right now. So to all of young people, just be passionate about what you are doing. It's important.
Yeah, you guys heard it. Thank you so much. I had such an awesome conversation with you, and for those who were conversing with us, and to all those who sent us questions, whatever you guys are passionate about, as Mariama has said, passion is an energy. You know, it translates to every single area of your life. So if you are passionate about this area, I would like to encourage you as well. We need more young people like the wonderful young lady that we've had a conversation with today. So I'm going to move to Tobit to close our section. Yeah, to close this wonderful segment.
Hi, hello, Mariama. So I am picking many valuable insights right now, especially on our conversation. So such as that urbanization is a reality and it is a trend, and as such, we will be more urbanized in the future, and there are there will be challenges, especially one of the great challenges will be climate change, as we have discussed, as a threat towards this urbanization trend. However, there are solutions that we can explore, and I really like your insights. I really like your work. It is because it is finding solutions to right where we are, in finding natural materials, local materials, that the solutions are not away, but it is in us, it is in our community. So thank you for your innovative solutions for these pressing issues, for these pressing problems.
Thank you so much. It was great.
So great. I have a really great conversation with you. So on behalf of the PeaceX organization, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our guest speaker, Ms. Mariama Badji, for taking her time from her busy schedule to be with us here today to share her valuable insights. We'd also like to thank all our participants from different parts of the world for tuning in. We hope that these insights will grow like seeds towards the end of fostering a better world for all. Before we conclude, I'd like to remind all of our viewers again that our Delegate Res Publica applications, that is Country Envoy, are now live. If you think that you have the will and the vision to bring the change that you want to see around you, please do give it a hit and fill up the application. We're super excited to have you all on board. We also request you all to check out our social media handles to get the latest information about our events. As of the moment, I would like to request all the PeaceX members to switch on their cameras for our group photo. Thank you everyone once again for making these PeaceX webinars a success. Please stay safe.